What's something you regret?
I would say not focusing on my schoolwork as a 8th grader, 8th through 12th grade. Just all the time I spent playing video games in my youth. They were fun. It was a good a distraction from the turmoil at home. I would play these role-playing games, RPGs, Final Fantasies, and it actually had a lot of reading. And so actually I feel like I really learned English from playing those games. There's a lot of math in those games, and really be interested in these kind of long development stories that kind of allowed me to consider reading books, which was a huge factor in my intellectual development and just my life.
What's the best decision you've made in life?
I would say in the 10th grade, deciding that I was tired of being obese, because I grew up heavy as a little kid. I think a doctor told me I was obese in the 4th or 5th grade, and I just got heavier and heavier. In 10th grade, I decided I was over it, and I was going to try to figure out how to lose weight and be healthy and get a pretty girlfriend.
So how long did it take for you to no longer be obese, and were you able to get that pretty girlfriend? It sounds like you did, since you said your senior year, your girlfriend had been pretty big on going to college. Now, we don't have a picture, so we don't know if she was pretty or not, Henry. That was that was a joke.
Yeah, I changed my diet. I stopped drinking sodas, just the obvious stuff. Like, stopped drinking sodas, stopped eating just straight up pizza, burgers, and fries. I got braces at that time. My teeth were very crooked, so the wires pulling on my teeth was really painful. So eating was painful, and I started eating healthier, and I just lost like 20 pounds within a couple of months. Few months, and kids at school were asking if I was doing drugs. Kids were doing drugs at my high school, so it was not an unreasonable question. And so I was so chubby. I was doing things like, I think I was being like vegetarian, drinking soy milk. I was doing like a lot of these fake, unhealthy foods that were marketed to me as healthy, and I didn't know what I was doing. And just little by little, I would try like get into a new sport. Like, I tried cycling for a while, so I was becoming more active. That would lose another 5-10 pounds. Go up and down a little bit. I tried rock climbing. I actually started to get a little bit of muscle, and then just learning more and more about nutrition and just making tweaks and changes. But it wasn't until I think I was 22 and I found a low carb, like a paleo diet, keto diets, and intermittent fasting, and it just came off of me, and I was like super lean. I would say it took me like 5-6 years to kind of figure things out between age 15 to 22.
Did you have any mentors? What sort of knowledge was there for you to access to be able to figure this out, or it was just trial and error?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just blogs, Facebook, and books were starting to come out on the paleo diet, and a lot of these authors had books and blogs, and people on the internet putting out blogs. I was just reading those. I was just devouring it, and I got kind of bored of that after a few years. I feel like, hey, I kind of have the knowledge. I'm not really learning much. I'll read stuff here and there, but I felt like I reached a rate of diminishing returns, and I wasn't really learning a whole lot. It was getting such a nuance, like down to the last few percent of what a healthy diet. There's a lot of. I was really kind of interested in the intellectual debate of it all about, is my rice healthy? Is dairy, or is that really part of the optimal human diet?
Vegetables.
A couple conferences, and so I've become a lot less strict with my diet, but I've been able to basically maintain a healthy diet. A very normal BMI. I was size 29, 30 waist for years. I bulked up a little bit, and so now I'm like a size 31, and I'm happy with my weight.
Yeah, so you have a pretty open diet. Do you also, aside from jiu-jitsu, do any exercises, fasting?
Yeah, I still lift weights. I think lifting weights is super important for my muscle and bone health. So try to lift weights a few days a week. I got into powerlifting for a while, deadlifts, bench press. I try to incorporate some other stuff. But that's just to kind of keep me healthy, decent muscle mass on me, keep my body resilient in jiu-jitsu. And I definitely credit that to not being injured, like so many of the people I've known don't do weightlifting. Yeah, and I started to run a little bit. I don't like it, but I'll run just to have my cardio for jiu-jitsu. And I come to realize there are a lot of cardiovascular longevity benefits to running and just other forms of cardio. Way back when I was 23, back in the bit when I was living in the Bay Area, I did do that big bike ride, the San Francisco to LA ACE Life Cycle, where I found to raise $3,000, and I got a nice bike, and I trained really hard for it. I rode from San Francisco to LA. That was a really tough, probably one of the toughest experiences of my life. But cycling was fun, but that whole experience, it was so tough. I did not want to cycle for a while, but now I want to get a bike again and ride away from carbs.
I remember you doing that when we were living together. So no more paleolithic diet, and no more fasting?
Yeah, I still do some fasting here and there, but I've come to realize that fasting is a really good tool for caloric management and for weight management, but there's nothing particularly special about it. For me, it was very helpful for managing the calories because there's only so many calories you need in a couple of meals, which was my normal. But now that I'm trying to not be super small and try to have a little bit of size to me, some muscle mass, I normally will eat 3 meals a day.
Okay.
Also, so I don't eat so much for lunch or dinner. But I do watch my weight, not only for health, but I compete in jujutsu, and I try to stay within a certain weight for my weight divisions.
And no more paleo diet. You were super big on that.
So I more or less 80% of my diet is, I would say, paleo-ish, but I've become a lot more flexible, and I just, I'll try to time my rice, and I try to have carbs from healthy sources like fruits and sweet potatoes, but I also really enjoy white rice. And I think in general, if you're healthy, you're active, a little bit of white rice is a pretty good carb source, but I try to eat more nutrient-dense foods like fruits and sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
If I'm not active, I will lower the carb. I think it's a lot of stress to have like a normal life and go out with friends and coworkers and to be, I can't eat that, I can't eat this. So I will allow myself to eat some other foods, but then what the foods I eat at home, I try to eat quite healthy.
Yeah, I do a 24 fasting. So, fast for 20 hours and then do a 4-hour feeding window. I do paleo diet Sunday through Friday, and then Saturday is my cheat day. Yesterday was my cheat day. It was amazing. I loved it. And then I work out 4 times a week, calisthenics. I don't leave the house for my workouts, and I also stopped drinking.
Nice. Oh, wow.
Let me be a little bit more precise and accurate in my description. I don't drink as much as I used to. And if I do go out, I'll cap it at maybe 3 beers, if that. And sometimes I don't even drink at all. But I'm not a teetotaler, but I definitely don't get drunk the way that I used to and the way that you've seen me get drunk. When you were talking about in your 20s going out and having fun, I think you and I went out a few times and you knew how I partied.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I actually, after college, I kind of decreased the amount of drinking. Not that I was a huge drinker in college, but drank a decent amount. So a lot of my friends did. Basically, everyone did in college. Let's say like a social drinker. And then some years ago, actually, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I got into wine. That was like a hobby of mine. I think before jiu-jitsu, that was like the hobby I was really getting into. Probably even still early to jiu-jitsu. Learning a lot about wine. My wife got me a wine fridge for Christmas one year, and I still have a very nice collection of wine. With school and studying a lot and trying to be sharp for tests, for clinics and hospital, seeing patients, learning a ridiculous amount of information, trying to get through medical school, get into residency, and then also jiu-jitsu, especially competition. I just started drinking less and less, and now I hardly drink, especially in the last 6 months. My wife is pregnant. She enjoys wine as well. And I think I'm going to continue to just drink a little bit here and there for social functions. I don't get drunk. For a long time. It's been years since I've gone drunk. I try to be very safe too, so if I'm driving, I pretty much won't even drink at all. I'm very much careful. I try to be a very responsible drinker.
And with Uber, there's no excuse. I won't get into my personal history, but nowadays there's just no excuse to even have 1 beer and drive, just because it's so convenient and easy to just tap the app in your phone and order an Uber or Lyft. Last 3 questions. What's your favorite book?
If I had to pick one book, it'd probably be Black Swan by Nicholas Taleb. It's a very intellectually demanding book, so I've had to read several times just to somewhat comprehend it. There's references to literature, to history, stock market, statistics, medicine, science, and it really appeals to me because it just incorporates so many of these facets of knowledge that I'm interested in. Fiction-wise, I would say Fight Club. It's a like a short fiction book. I love the movie, read it maybe 10 years after I saw the movie when I became more of a reader. Loved the book as well. And then probably like the longest book I've ever read, took me a while, was The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. Beautiful book.
All 3 of those books are in my to-be-read list. I've read some Nassim Taleb, some of his blog posts and just stuff that he has online, but I've never read any of his books. I do like his idea of skin in the game, right? So he's famous for that. I just haven't had the time, but now that you mention it, it's definitely going to be moved up in the queue. What's your favorite movie? You already mentioned Fight Club, which is up there for me as well. But
yeah, it's probably my favorite movie if I had to say, but I don't know. Maybe Dumb and Dumber. seen it a million times with my brother growing up. I can probably still sit down and watch it. Maybe Goodfellas. I can watch this movie a million times and not get bored. And actually, Fight Club is arguably one of the small number of movies that were better than the book.
Oh, wow.
I watched where like the author and like the director are talking during the movie as they watch it. I don't know what you call that, but I remember those being that's like back in the DVD days. Yeah, and that was really fun. And I think the author was very impressed with how the movie came out, and he said like there was even like points in the movie that he didn't even make to connect connections between Evan Norton and Brad Pitt, their characters. He thought the movie did very well, and that the book didn't do.
Yeah. Chuck Palahniuk, right? That's the author.
I don't remember.
I do love Fight Club. I've never read the book, but now that you mention it, I might not even have to read the book since the movie is superior to the source material.
The book is very good, though, too.
Okay.
If you haven't read it, it's a short read. If you like the movie, you should read it.
Aren't they coming out with a second part to Fight Club?
I think so. I wish that wasn't the case. I think growing up, I loved when there were sequels to my favorite movies and stuff like that, but after so many bad sequels, I'm at the point, I'm mature enough to just say, like, just leave it alone.
Yeah, that's true. I saw the sequel to Gladiator, and that was horrendous. One of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah. I think the worst sequel I've ever seen was Zoolander. I saw that actually maybe like a few months ago, and I was surprised how bad it was. And I love Zoolander.
Zoolander's my favorite comedy of all time. I want to say Zoolander, Nacho Libre, those are the two that are coming to the top of my mind right now. Love those movies. I went to watch Zoolander Part 2 in the movie theaters, and yeah, that was bad. I shouldn't have done that.
Hey, How High. I love How High. I think you mentioned you love How High.
Yes, I forgot about that one.
I love that movie, and I might try the second. I think they made a sequel with these other characters, other actors. I might watch it.
Although, you know what? I haven't seen How High since it came out, and I'm not sure if I would still love it if I rewatched it today with me as who I am, this current iteration of Larry Attention. So who knows? I also probably was smoking when I was watching these movies, so I don't know how a sober assessment of the movies would change my mind about them. What's your favorite album?
I'd say the first album from Interpol called Turn on the Bright Lights. It took me a little while to get into the album when I found it like in 11th, 12th grade, but soon after I was just hooked, and I listened to that album. I probably have listened to that album 1,000 times. I'm not kidding you.
Interpol.
I still listen to that album. I've seen them, probably the band I've seen the most live, maybe five times. And every song is a good song. I've been listening to it from start to finish. You know, in high school I played the guitar, but I even learned to play the drums a little bit. And I would just spend hours just like listening to that album and trying to learn how to play it on the guitar, searching for guitar tabs online, learning to play guitar or drums just from listening. I mean, it's a whole different world with YouTube, and there's so many tutorials and people playing songs on guitar and all kinds of instruments. So it's never been easier to learn an instrument, but unfortunately, in this day of social media and other Netflix, so many distractions, I see less and less people playing instruments and learning instruments.
It's a shame.
It's a shame, and I hardly play guitar, but it's something I want to get back to.
Interpol is what genre of music?
Great question. It was kind of like the beginning of like that 2000s indie rock wave. Interpol in particular, they're like kind of like post-punk, indie. That's kind of the labels. There were a lot of bands that kind of started sounding like them afterwards. They were big trendsetters, and their sound has shifted a little bit over the years. But the second album's great as well. First album is just a perfect album.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
And where are they from? Southern California as well, or?
They're from New York, actually.
Okay.
Like a lot of those indie bands.
Brooklyn?
There's a big scene. And there's a documentary that I still need to watch about them and like the Strokes and LCD Sound System.
Okay.
And Yeahs, like bands that came out of that same scene in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I recognize those names. Brooklyn hipster indie rock scene.
Yeah.
Well, Henry, it's been great talking to you. Great seeing you again, and it was a great conversation and just catching up.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It was really good to catch up. And I'm in SoCal. Come visit me. I'm in 2 hours east of the LAX. There's the airport in Palm Springs. And hopefully I'll make it. You're in Philly, right?
I'm in Philly. Yeah, come to the East Coast.
I've only been to the East Coast once. It was actually pretty recently. I went to Boston for a medical school conference.
Okay.
Medical conference, and I liked it a lot. But,
Boston is
I'd like to get to Philly.
Yeah, Boston's a pretty city. But yeah, I'll definitely try to make it out there and link up in person and see your wife and your family and your baby and reconnect.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And congratulations to you and your family. And really good to see you.
Thank you. and take care.